Before the events of The Lord of the Rings, we know that Bilbo had met Gollum years ago, taking the precious ring from him. This first theory suggests that Gollum took his revenge against Frodo's parents. In the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, we know that Bilbo has adopted Frodo after his parents were killed when he was 12. We learn that Frodo's parents were killed in a boating accident, or so we are told. Frodo learns this from Gandalf, who we all know takes a special kinship with Frodo. He would likely want to spare Frodo the pain of knowing the truth. As for Gollum, we know his madness over the ring is all-consuming, making his journey to the Shire in search of Bilbo likely. It is also likely that Gollum could have mistaken Bilbo for Drogo, Frodo's father. This theory ties the events of The Hobbit closer to The Lord of the Rings. It would also give Bilbo a sense of guilt and explain why he would feel obligated to look after Bilbo despite him being 21 years old at the time of adoption. The bond between Sam and Frodo is the heart of the series. Seeing these two go from carefree teens to climbing Mount Doom is quite the journey. It is clear that their friendship was what made them able to win in the end. But was their connection just a friendship? This theory states that Sam and Frodo's relationship has some shades of a romantic one. Fans, scholars, and academics have debated this. This debate on what they were to each other has persisted to this day. So much so that in the prequel Hobbit trilogy, many noticed an in-your-face love triangle that was added from the books. Fans speculated that due to all the discourse surrounding Sam and Frodo, they didn't want a similar thing to happen with the primarily male cast. This pullback from the studio does lend more credence to this theory, despite never being confirmed.
I'm glad you're with me.
One of the more tragic moments in The Lord of the Rings is the story of the Ents. In Two Towers, Pippin and Merry find themselves talking when we see that there are only males left. A theory proposes that Saruman killed all of the female Ents, known as the Entwives. More specifically, the White Wizard was helping Saruman build his empire. It is well known to many that Tolkien was a World War I solider, and many of the story beats come from his own personal experience with war. Much like real war, no matter who is fighting, the natural world always loses in the end. Having Saruman be the cause of the Entwives going extinct would drive Tolkien's point home even further. This would also give more of a reason as to why Treebeard and his friends would be out of the war when Pippin and Merry meet him. They are likely the last ones of their kind, with no hope of rebuilding their people and making their story all the more tragic. Tolkien created not only one of the best fantasy stories of all time, but also the benchmark for nearly every fantasy world that would follow. Middle-earth is as iconic as they come, with fans mapping almost every inch of the land. So much so that fans have wondered if there were any ties to another iconic fantasy world. This next theory ponders if Middle-earth is Westeros thousands of years in the past. Game of Thrones took the classic formula of The Lord of the Rings and made the fantasy elements less of a forefront, barring the Dragon Queen. Fans have thought that this could be due to the humans of Middle-earth. After centuries of war and violence, the creatures of Middle-earth have been extinguished. All that is left are the humans and the dragons to remember the past by. If true, this is quite a dark turn for the Lord of the Rings series. Yet this is in line with the tone of Game of Thrones. Fans have also cited similar landmarks that could have been changed over time. G.R.R. Martin has stated Tolkien's books' profound effect on him and the fantasy genre, so it would be easy to assume that Martin would use similar styling for his fantasy world, perhaps as an homage to the novels that interested him. This next theory has to do with the split personality of Gollum and Smeagol. We see the ring has power over Smeagol, turning him from a hobbit into the creature we all know. This theory says that the personality of Gollum is actually the ring manifesting into a living vessel. Gollum's sole purpose is to get the ring back. To do so, he has to attempt to prey on Frodo's fears. He is successful in this. Some believe this power of persuasion could come from the ring itself. Having held it for so long, the ring has put a piece of itself inside Smeagol, which is what caused the split in his personality. This would also make sense as to why Gollum can track the ring so easily, as it is a part of his very being. A running joke throughout the trilogy is the seemingly endless stomach of the hobbits.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
Specifically Pippin. While this is played for laughs, one theory suggests that it is not up to them. Rather, it is an actual biological trait that they need to consume more food. In our world, it is known that smaller animals typically have to consume more because their bodies process food much faster. It is then easy to assume that hobbits are similar, making their conceived overindulgence of food something that they cannot control. Another fact that supports this is that despite how much we see the hobbits eat, we don't see many overweight ones, meaning that this level of food is not abnormal for their bodies. This theory doesn't do much to change the story. However, it does add just a bit more texture to the already expansive world. A common complaint with the Lord of the Rings trilogy centers around the eagles. Why didn't the hobbits just use the eagles? This theory attempts to explain that Gandalf was way ahead of all of us and wanted the team to use the eagles too. After fighting off the Balrog, Gandalf's famous last words, "Fly, you fools," could have been his way of hinting at what he wanted the team to do. His telling them to fly could be interpreted as him telling them quite literally to fly the rest of the way. More to this, earlier in the film, Gandalf suggests that they head north, and as the theory says, in order to meet up with the eagles. They would then take Frodo and Sam to Mount Doom. Unfortunately for Gandalf, things didn't work out that way, leaving him just one sentence to attempt to tell the Fellowship his plans. Since we are talking about Gandalf and his not-so-great plans, let's talk about why Merry and Pippin were really there. From the moment Frodo accepts the task of bearing the ring, you can see a look of sadness on Gandalf's face. He is well aware that whoever takes this ring is doomed, and despite his admiration for Frodo, he knows that there is too much at stake. That said, if he knew how dangerous this quest was, why would he agree to bring Sam, Pippin, and Merry? This theory suggests that they were meant as backup hobbits. It is shown how much Gandalf appreciates the hobbit race, knowing how truly courageous they can be. Bringing along 3 more of them would be for security. In case Frodo was killed or succumbed to the ring, the others could pick up the torch. This is quite a dark theory for the lovable wizard, but with Middle-earth at stake, it is understandable that he would have a couple of contingency plans in place. This last theory concerns the true hero of this story, Samwise Gamgee. There is an idea among audiences that the story we see is not the truth of what happened. The theory goes that in reality, Frodo died on their journey to Mount Doom, either being killed by a creature or with the ring taking over and leaving Sam as the one to throw the ring away. Because he cared for his friend and didn't want to see his memory tarnished, he made up a majority of the events that we see involving Frodo and making up this grand adventure, as well as his departure with the elves at the end. This theory does lend itself to what many believe is already true. Sam was the real hero of the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings is one of, if not the, most beloved and acclaimed fantasy stories of all time, spawning an entire generation of fantasy lovers who have created their own worlds. Everyone knows this is the one that started them all. With that power, it is no wonder that fans are still coming up with new theories and Easter eggs to this day. What is your favorite theory that could be true? Take an eagle down to the comments and let us know. Thanks for watching ScreenRant, and we'll see you next time.